It was the summer after my first year of college when I picked up a babysitting job that, to this day, still haunts me. The family lived way out in the countryside. Their house sat on a long, winding road, with no neighbors for miles. When I pulled up that evening, the sun was already setting behind the tree line, throwing long shadows across the yard. The house itself was old, 2 stories, with peeling white paint and a front porch that sagged just slightly under its own weight. Inside, it smelled faintly of old wood and something floral, maybe lavender. The parents were warm and polite. They gave me a quick rundown. Dinner for the kids was already prepared, bedtime at 9, and they'd be home by midnight. I remember glancing at the clock as they left. It was 7:30. The sound of their car pulling away was the last bit of noise before silence. The kids, Ethan, who was 8, and little Lila, just 4, were sweet and easy to manage. We ate mac and cheese together, played some board games, and watched a cartoon until bedtime. Honestly, the first few hours felt normal, peaceful even, but once the kids were asleep, the house seemed to change. It was too quiet, not the normal kind of quiet. This was a heavy quiet, the kind that makes your ears strain for sound. I sat in the living room scrolling on my phone when I first heard it, a faint creaking, like someone stepping on the upstairs floorboards. I froze. My first thought was that Ethan or Lila had gotten up, so I climbed the stairs slowly, calling their names in a whisper. Both of their doors were shut. When I peeked inside, they were sound asleep. I told myself it was an old house. Old houses make noises, and I went back downstairs. But 20 minutes later, I heard it again, this time louder. One slow creak, then another. I muted the TV and held my breath. The sound was coming from directly above me, the attic. Now, I hadn't been told anything about the attic. I didn't even know where the entrance was. But the longer I sat there, the more certain I became that someone or something was moving up there. I stood in the center of the living room, staring up at the ceiling, my skin crawling. And that's when it happened. A thud, heavy, directly overhead. I jumped. My heart started hammering in my chest. I didn't want to scare the kids, so I forced myself to stay calm. I picked up the phone and called their parents. No answer. I tried again, straight to voicemail. So I sat on the couch, clutching the house phone, staring at the ceiling, waiting. For about half an hour, nothing happened. I almost convinced myself I'd imagined it. Then, at 10:15, the power went out. Every light in the house flickered once, then died. The living room plunged into darkness. The only sound was the wind outside, brushing against the old wooden siding. I scrambled for my phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the dark, shaky in my trembling hands. That's when I heard Lila cry out upstairs. "Mommy!" My stomach dropped. I ran up the stairs, shining the light ahead of me. I pushed open Lila's door. She was sitting up in bed, clutching her stuffed bear, tears streaming down her face. "What's wrong, sweetie?" I whispered, kneeling beside her. Her voice shook. "There was a man in my room." I froze. Every hair on my body stood on end. "Where, Lila? Where did you see him?" She pointed toward the corner of the room. The flashlight beam followed her finger. The corner was empty. I tried to comfort her, tucking her back in, telling her it was just a bad dream. But her eyes, I'll never forget the way she stared past me, wide, fixed, like she was still seeing him. I checked Ethan's room too. He was fast asleep, nothing unusual. But when I stepped back into the hall, I noticed something I hadn't before. At the end of the hall, near the ceiling, was a square panel, the attic entrance, the same place I'd heard the footsteps, the thuds, and now, the man Lila swore she saw. I stood there, staring at it, my throat dry, my flashlight trembling. For a moment, I swore I saw it move, just slightly, like the panel wasn't fully flush against the ceiling anymore. I backed away slowly, then locked both kids' bedroom doors from the inside. We huddled together in Lila's room, my phone clutched in my hand, waiting for the parents to call back. That's when I heard it, the faintest sound, a dragging noise, directly above us. I didn't move, didn't breathe. The kids clung to me, whispering questions I couldn't answer. The dragging turned into soft, deliberate steps, pacing back and forth across the attic floor. At one point, it stopped, right above Lila's bed, and then 3 slow knocks. Boom, boom, boom. The sound reverberated through the ceiling. Lila started to cry. Ethan whimpered from the other room. I wanted to scream, to run, but I forced myself to stay calm for their sake. I dialed 911 with shaking hands. The dispatcher answered. 911, what's your emergency? There's someone in the attic, I whispered. I'm babysitting. The kids are here. Please, send someone now. The dispatcher tried to keep me calm, asking me to stay on the line, to stay quiet, to lock the door. Minutes crawled by. Every second felt like an hour. The noises continued above us, sometimes pacing, sometimes scratching. Once, I swear, I heard breathing. Finally, after what felt like forever, red and blue lights flooded the yard. A loud knock at the front door made me nearly collapse with relief. Police! I unlocked the bedroom door, scooped up Lila, and ran downstairs with Ethan close behind. The officers stormed in, guns drawn, flashlights cutting through the dark. They searched the attic. What they found still makes me shiver. The panel had been moved aside. Inside the attic, they discovered an old sleeping bag, food wrappers, a half-empty water bottle, and footprints. Fresh footprints. Whoever had been up there had been living in the attic, watching the family, watching the kids. One of the officers told me quietly, "It looks like he left just before we arrived." You're lucky. I didn't feel lucky. I felt sick, because I knew deep down he hadn't left until that night. He'd been up there for weeks, maybe longer, and Lila had been right. There was a man in her room. 14-year-old Jenna was babysitting at an old house on the edge of town, the kind of house that felt like it held too many memories, too many secrets. The parents were warm and kind, but as soon as they left, Jenna noticed how quiet the place was. Every step on the hardwood floor groaned. Every gust of wind outside made the shutters bang. By 10 p.m., the kids were asleep. Jenna sat in the living room with her homework. Then the phone rang, the old landline with a shrill, piercing ring. Jenna picked it up. Hello? A man's voice. Low, cold. Check the children. Click. Jenna froze. Her skin prickled. It had to be a prank. She hung up, trying to laugh it off, but her hands shook as she turned back to her homework. 10 minutes later, the phone rang again. She picked it up with a shaky hand. The same voice, the same words. Check the children. Click. Jenna's stomach dropped. She stood, her knees weak, and climbed the stairs slowly. The old wood groaned under each step. At the end of the hall, she peeked into the kids' bedroom. Both were asleep, breathing softly, safe. She exhaled with relief, forcing herself to smile. Maybe it really was just some kids pulling a prank. She went back downstairs. Minutes later, the phone rang again. Who is this? Jenna demanded, her voice shaking. Silence. Then breathing, slow, heavy. She slammed the phone down, her chest tight. She paced the room, her ears straining for any sound. Then it rang again. This time, she didn't answer. Instead, she dialed 911. Please, she begged. Someone keeps calling. They're telling me to check the children. The dispatcher's voice was calm, steady. Stay on the line. We'll trace the call. Jenna's heart pounded in her ears. Seconds stretched into minutes. Finally, the dispatcher's tone shifted. Urgent. Get the kids. Get out of the house. Right now. The calls are coming from inside. Jenna dropped the phone. Her blood went cold. She bolted up the stairs, scooping the children from their beds. As she carried them down, she heard something. A soft creak, the sound of a closet door opening. She didn't look. She ran out the front door, the children clutched in her arms. Moments later, Patrol cars screeched into the driveway. Officers stormed the house. They found the upstairs phone, off the hook, in the children's closet. No one else was in the house. No one was ever caught. Jenna never forgot the sound of that voice, the way it echoed in her ears, low and commanding. Check the children. It was a chilly October night when 17-year-old Katie arrived at the Parkers' house. She had babysat for them before, but something about tonight felt different. The Parkers lived on the edge of town, in a 2-story home surrounded by dense woods. At night, those woods turned into a wall of black. The trees groaned and swayed with the wind, their branches scratching at the windows like claws. Inside, things felt normal enough. Katie greeted little Chloe, a shy 6-year-old girl, clutching her stuffed rabbit. The parents gave their usual instructions: bedtime at 9, snacks in the fridge, emergency numbers on the counter. And then they left. By 9:30, Chloe was tucked into bed, her nightlight glowing faintly against the wall. Katie left the bedroom door cracked open, just the way Chloe liked. Downstairs, the house was quiet. Too quiet. Katie scrolled through her phone, the soft hum of the TV filling the silence. And then it happened. Tap, tap, tap. At first, Katie thought it was the wind. But then it came again. Tap, tap, tap. Her stomach tightened. She muted the TV. The sound was coming from the back of the house. Slowly, she turned her head toward the sliding glass door, and her breath caught in her throat. A man's face, pressed against the glass, smiling, his breath fogging the window, leaving streaks of condensation. Katie stumbled back, her pulse pounding. For a moment she thought, maybe it was just a reflection. Maybe she was imagining it. But then the man raised his hand and tapped. Again, tap, tap, tap. Her fingers shook as she grabbed her phone and dialed 911. 911. What's your emergency? Katie's voice trembled as she whispered, there's a man at the window. Please send someone. The dispatcher's tone was calm but firm. Stay calm. Do not engage. Take the child. Lock yourselves in a room until officers arrive. Katie swallowed hard, her throat dry. She rushed upstairs. Chloe stirred as Katie whispered her name. Confused, half asleep, Chloe rubbed her eyes. But Katie didn't explain. She scooped her up, clutching her tightly, and hurried into the bedroom. That's when the sliding door downstairs rattled violently. The man was trying to open it. Katie's heart slammed in her chest. She shoved the dresser in front of the bedroom door, locked it, and pressed her ear against the wood. Silence, then footsteps, slow, heavy, moving across the floor below. Each step echoed through the house, until finally the stairs creaked. Step by step by step, Katie's entire body shook. She pressed Chloe against her, whispering, shh, it's okay, stay quiet. But Chloe whimpered softly, who's in the house? Katie forced a trembling smile. No one, sweetie, everything's fine. Her voice cracked. The dispatcher's voice came faintly from the phone. They're almost there. Stay quiet. Stay calm. Finally, flashing red and blue lights filled the windows. Sirens split through the night. The footsteps stopped. Katie waited and waited. Then she dared to push the dresser aside and peeked into the hall. Empty. She bolted down the stairs, Chloe clinging to her neck. When she opened the front door, 2 officers were already rushing toward the house. They searched every room, every closet, even the basement. But the man was gone. The only sign he had ever been there was the sliding door, unlocked. Later that night, after the Parkers rushed home and Chloe was safe in her mother's arms, one of the officers pulled Katie aside. His voice was low. There have been reports in the area. A man, tall, dressed in dark clothing. He looks into windows. Sometimes he breaks in. Katie nodded numbly, but deep down, she knew He had been inside. She had heard his footsteps. On the stairs, Katie never babysat again.